Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining for the session today. It's great to be back at bbcon, and I appreciate your taking the time to join my session today. I am Bill Connors. I am a Razor's Edge consultant and trainer. I have been working with Razor's Edge as a fundraiser, as a consultant since 1995. And so what we're going to talk today is about how to use the Razor's Edge NXT WebView specifically to help with fundraising. Now, in the past, bbcon presentations have been 60, 75 minutes long, and that's what I'm used to creating. So I created a lot of material, more material than we have time to cover in this 30 minutes that we have together in this session. So I want to point out that the slide deck is available to you to download. I will be going over some slides quickly, or even perhaps not at all. I thought, why delete material if it could be benefit to you, even if I don't have time to talk about it. So do know that you have the opportunity to download the slides. The website is there on my page, but it'll be on every slide, so you don't race to write it down now. I also want to begin by thanking you for the work you do. I had the unpleasant situation earlier this month of having my mother, who is in Fort Myers, Florida, ride through the eye of the hurricane. And the picture you see there on the screen is the road right outside of where she lives. And it was a real reminder to me of the importance of the work that we do. For those of you that are in senior care, for those of you that are in disaster relief, for those of you that are in medical foundations, thank you. And of course, thank you for all of you for the work that you do and how you make the world a better place. That's what this presentation is really about, is how can we be more effective and raise more money to support the good work of the organizations that you all work for. I'm going to stick very specifically to the session description and the intent of the session today. And that is that when Blackbaud built the Razor's Edge NXT WebView, they did so not just to do things the way we've always done them before, but now in a browser, but to do things in a new way. And I'm going to explain that, but that's the intention of the session today, is how do we use the software to do modern fundraising and not just do things the old way. When we do that, we're going to cover it in 4 topics. We're going to start with some quick introductory points. They're quick, hopefully. They are introductory, but nonetheless, they're important. And I hope that you'll spend a few minutes thinking about this and perhaps even come back to the slides and look at them later. Then we're going to move into the recommendations of how to use the WebView. If you're the traditional major gift officer, planned giving officer, mid-level fundraiser, and our friends on the organization side, corporate foundation relations, those of you that are grant managers, anyone who manages a portfolio and has a one-on-one relationship with their prospects, that's what this second section is going to be about. And I'm just going to refer to you in the aggregate as a portfolio manager. The third part of the session today will be oriented towards those fundraisers that are direct marketers, meaning those that manage direct mail, those that manage email for your organization. And then we'll wrap up the session with a recommendation that applies to everyone about understanding what gifts have come into the organization and how to respond to those. So let's get started. In the good old days, like the 80s and 90s, if I wanted a plane ticket, I'd have to go to a travel agent who would go to this black box. And black box, by that we mean some system I didn't know how to use, I couldn't access myself. Just the travel agent would go and they would generate the plane ticket. Back in the good old days, bosses had secretaries who would go into this black box to manage calendars, to manage email, because the boss didn't do it. And in the good old days, the fundraisers would work with the database manager who would go into this black box called the Razor's Edge that the fundraisers didn't use or know anything about, and they would generate reports and exports. Well, that's not the way the world works today. If I want a plane ticket, I just go on the web and buy it myself. If I'm a boss, I just manage my email and calendar myself via the web through Outlook or their Google products. The challenge we have, and what I want to address today, and this is not an exaggeration, is we still have a lot of fundraising being done the old way, where the fundraiser goes to the database manager who goes into this black box that the fundraiser doesn't use, and the database manager generates reports and exports and then sends them back to the fundraiser. And as you can tell, as I assume you're going to agree, agree that's the old-fashioned way to do it. That's not what the web view was built to do, the way we were using Razor's Edge so long ago. The web view was built for fundraisers to be able to access their system, to put information in and to get information out on their own in real time in the cloud. And that's what the web view is all about. So 3 important points. Exporting data to spreadsheets is not modern. These black and white screenshots that you see on the screen are from the export module that was in the Razor's Edge version 6 that I wrote in 1995 and 1996 with a colleague for junior achievement. We've been exporting for 30 or 40 years. That you put data into the latest version of Excel is not modern. Now, the bigger point is it's not secure. It's not behind a login name and password and multi-factor authentication if it's a spreadsheet just sitting on your computer. The data is not up to date because any changes made in the database aren't going to be reflected on the spreadsheet. The data is not updatable because if I change the spreadsheet, it does nothing for the database. It's not drill throughable. If there's a gift on the spreadsheet, if there's a constituent on the spreadsheet, I can't see more detail about that. It's not easily shareable. The database manager can't run reports across spreadsheets. My boss can't easily see it. My colleague can't tell who I'm meeting with and what my fundraising strategy is. And then, of course, it's not controllable. I can put anything I want into a cell in a spreadsheet. And so you might say, well, yeah, Bill, but we can put controls in a spreadsheet, but then you're just building a database, so why not just use the database you have? So exporting to a spreadsheet is not good fundraising portfolio management in 2022. I was meeting with a fundraiser recently and we were talking about this and he said, yes, Bill, but it's easier. And he was professional about this and he said, but I know, it's being easier is not good enough. And that would be my response. I mean, it's easier not to brush your teeth. It's easier not to take a shower. It's easier not to go to work. But, we all do what we need to do because some of the hard things in life are for the better. And this is one of them. We need to be using our database. Similarly, emailing the information to the fundraisers isn't any better. It's just a different format that we're committing the same problem. So if you're like me and you spend a lot of time looking at fundraisers' inboxes as well, you also know that a lot of fundraisers don't do a very good job staying on top of their email. I have seen inboxes with hundreds of unread messages and thousands of messages in total buried in newsletters and announcements about Zoom wine social hours or leftover cake in the break room after the board meeting kind of thing. Email is not how we want to be managing our fundraising. We need to have the fundraisers in the fundraising application. Now, some of you may say, hey, Bill, but the web view has this problem and that problem. And I'd probably agree with you. The web view is not perfect, but you know what? I'm not perfect. And my partner still loves me and stays with me. So the web view doesn't have to be perfect for it to be good. And it's very good as we're about to see. So with those introductory points out of the way, let's talk about how a portfolio manager, somebody who carries a portfolio, who has a one-to-one relationship with prospects, should use the Razor's Edge, especially the web view. And again, I want to be really clear. This is for the major gift officer, the plan giving officer, the legacy officer, the mid-level donor fundraising, the grants manager, the corporate and foundation relations folks, anyone in the fundraising shop who's managing a one-to-one relationship. So here's how I would do it. So I was a fundraiser back in the day. I was a director of development for junior achievement. I'm a Razor's Edge consultant now. But if I were to go back and be a fundraiser for a nonprofit, here's how I would use the Razor's Edge web view to manage my fundraising. Every morning, maybe you start your day with your coffee. I started with oatmeal. Fine. You sit down, you check your email. Hey, I check my email. Outlook is the first application I start every day. I get it. You start your email, you check your email, get that out of the way. But then when it's time to sit down and really get to work for the day, fundraisers should be logging into Razor's Edge. Just fire up Microsoft Word if you want to do a letter or a proposal. You fire up Excel if you want to do financial management. You fire up your browser when you want to surf the internet. You should be firing up Razor's Edge when you want to do fundraising. That's what it's for. We're not professional emailers that should live in our inbox. We're professional fundraisers that should use in my humble opinion at least, should use our fundraising application. So when the Razor's Edge starts, there's a fair amount of functionality that's available to a fundraiser. In fact, Blackbaud purposely built the web view for fundraisers first, not for people like me who are consultants or the database managers, but for fundraisers. So there aren't 18 different areas. There's only 4 or 5 tabs based on what security rights and optional modules you have. But let me guide you how I would use the software on my day-to-day basis. So it's time to start my workday. I'm serious about getting to work. The first thing that I would do is go to the Actions tab in the Work Center. Why? Because the actions tell me what I need to do today based on what I've told Razor's Edge I need to do today. This is where I'm going to see how to fulfill the commitments I've made to constituents, what phone calls I need to make, what meetings I've promised to have, what collateral like a case statement or other program information I've promised to pull together for prospects. Now, this does bring up the point that if you're using Razor's Edge well and as intended, that actions are supposed to be put in before you do them. You're not supposed to wait until after the action is done and then just use it to enter the fact that you did it. Actions are supposed to be entered when you've made the commitment with the constituent. I will send you this. I will meet with you at this time. I'll call you then. You put the action in the Razor's Edge when you make the commitment so you remember to do it. You also enter actions when you sit down and come up with your fundraising strategy. So what's the cultivation plan? What's the solicitation and stewardship plans? That should be reflected in advance by actions in the Razor's Edge. And so that's why the Actions tab in the Work Center is such a useful tool for me, because now that I'm logging in on October 17th, I can see what things I've asked the system to remind me to do today, both in terms of obligations to constituents, as well as other things I need to do. Now, one of the great things about the Actions tab here in the Work Center is that there's a fair amount of capability. I don't have to be running all over the software trying to figure things out. I can add the actions here. I can edit actions here. I can mark actions completed. I can pull up the constituent record. There are a lot of bells and whistles and tips and tricks I could give you if I had a little bit more time than 30 minutes that I don't have time to get into now. But you should be able, as a fundraiser, to sit there with your Actions tab in the Work Center and just tick through the things you need to do. After you've done that, after I've done that at least, what I would do then is to use the date parameter, the date filter, and look a little farther in the week. So today is Monday, October the 17th, and I've worked all of my actions for today. Well, what's coming up tomorrow? What's coming up Wednesday? What's coming up on Thursday that I can start and get ready to do right now? So these are the highest priority items that I expect the system to help me remember to do to get done. And so this is where I would start in the Work Center. When I have all the actions done that I need to do today, what would I do next? What I would do is go to the Gifts tab in the Work Center. Why? Because these are the gifts that I, as a portfolio manager, care the most about. These are not all the gifts in the database. These are just the gifts given by those in my portfolio. I don't have to wait for a report to be distributed. I don't have to wait for anybody to do anything other than for the gift processor to get the data entry done. As soon as they've got the data entry done within minutes, it will show up in my Work Center, and then I can decide what to do. Now, of course, the gift processor is going to do the day-to-day acknowledgement letter and the day-to-day receipts. But what kind of special follow-up do I want to do as a fundraiser? Do I want to send an email, make a phone call, write a note? And I can see that, and I can do that right here from within the Gifts tab of the Work Center. So for example, if you look at the screen, you'll notice that if I click on the dollar amount of the gift, it will fly out on the right side of the screen and show me more details about the gift. So if the columns on the screen aren't sufficient to give you everything you need to know about the gift, no problem. Just click on the dollar amount and out will fly the gift. Can't do that in a spreadsheet. Can't do that in an email, okay? This is why we want fundraisers to be in the software where they can drill into things. Additionally, if I decide, you know what, I need to call this donor and send them, tell them a special thank you for making this gift. Not a problem. I simply click on their name on the gift list. Out from the right side of the screen will fly their constituent record. I can see their contact information. I can pick up the phone. I can write an email based on that contact information. And then with the constituent record right there up on the screen, I can go ahead and record the action that I had this special interaction with the constituent, and I'm done. No data entry for later, no note taking for later, no trying to remember to do this. I've just done it. So that's the second thing I would do during my average workday as a major gifts officer, as a portfolio manager, is I would look at the gifts in the work center. The third thing that I would do then after I've done those two things is I would go to the overview tab. On the overview tab are these white cards that are called needs attention cards. And here's what they do. Here's the service that they provide. Every night, the Razor's Edge is analyzing everyone in your entire database. This is not something that the database manager needs to turn on. This is not something the database manager needs to configure. The Razor's Edge is doing this automatically every night, no matter what your database manager has done or not. And it is looking for opportunities and pain points with your constituents that would be easy to fall between the cracks if it wasn't a computer that's just sitting there with programming, grinding away, looking for these things in ways that us humans just aren't good about constantly staying on top of. For example, it can tell us if we have a constituent in our portfolio who has a past due pledge, for whom we have forgotten to reach out to for 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, if they've made a recent gift, if they have a birthday coming up, if they've registered for an event. So if you look there carefully on those white cards across the screen, you'll see that there are little orange highlights around higher giving potential and lost donor. Those are example of tags that show up on these cards. And if you want to know more about how the tags are defined, you can bring up help and it will show you. What I would endeavor to do is to go through and work all of my cards every day, to either respond with an action or to use my human intelligence and relationship with the constituent and dismiss it. Once I'm done with those 3 items, then it depends on how much time I have. If I have more time in the day to focus on fundraising, I would then turn to the portfolio tab. The portfolio tab is going to show me everyone I'm assigned to. And there are many functions that you can look at and play with and discover another day. What I want to do is focus on what's in the purple box there, the last actions and the next action. You can follow my advice or not, but what I would do as a fundraiser with the portfolio is I want to make sure that every single constituent in my portfolio has a next action, that I've been thoughtful, I've created a plan, I've figured out what is the strategy that is going to get this constituent to make the next gift that I'm hoping that they will make. Even if they're in a situation of stewardship or permanent stewardship, I still need an action to ensure that I'm continuing to do the activities that I've been assigned as the portfolio manager to do. And the portfolio tab makes it very easy to do that. If you have the opportunities function in Razor's Edge, you can do the same kind of analysis at the opportunity level. Focus on the dollar amount, the date range, the opportunity purpose that you plan to be soliciting the constituent for, and then tracking your activities. What you see on the screen right now is me as a bad fundraiser. I don't have any next actions on any of these opportunities. That's not a good thing. This shows me what I need to be doing in order to ensure that these opportunities actually result in a gift. Now, the opportunities tab in the Work Center shows all the opportunities in detail. But if you need to see your entire pipeline in a summary fashion, I would encourage each fundraiser to go to the opportunities dashboard in reporting and to filter it there. The green box got a little off. You want to go up where you can see my name a little above the green box, and you want to filter it to yourself. So if your fundraising goal for the year is $1 million in fundraising and your expected amount is only 350,000, you better identify some more opportunities and get this filled in so that you meet your fundraising goal for the year. And of course, these numbers will vary as you manage the individual opportunities. So even individual fundraisers should be looking at the opportunities dashboard to manage their portfolio, to manage their pipeline. Okay. I'm not going to go through this tab by design. It's not because I'm running out of time now. I knew coming into the session I didn't have time to get into this. So I'd encourage you to come back and read this slide when you download the slide deck later. So in summary, a portfolio manager needs to be using 4 areas of the web view. I have chosen in this session to highlight on the Work Center and on the Opportunities dashboard. But there are terrific tools for a portfolio manager to do their work very successfully in the web view, and that's how I would do it. Let's now shift the conversation to our direct marketers, those who do emails and direct mail, hard copy mail for our organizations, and talk about some of the web view tools that are in the web that exist in Raiser's Edge to assist those fundraisers. The most obvious tool is the lists function. Now, I want to set some expectation about lists, however, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about this tool. Lists is a tool that's intended for fundraisers. It's intentionally a simplified tool. It is not intended as the new query and export tool in the web view. Query is practically an impossible tool for fundraisers to use because it's so complicated. It's powerful. We can do terrific things as database managers with query in the database view, but it's far too complex for the average fundraiser. And that's not what List is for. List is to give fundraisers a more manageable, approachable tool that they can use for the lists that they want to create. So lists in the web view is good when you need to create a list in order to send an email from the web view email tool. And then it's good for creating drafts by direct marketers for hard copy mail or email that needs to be sent from other systems like Online Express or MailChimp. I emphasize the word drafts here and not final because, and this is a very important point, the lists function in the web view should not be exported. I cannot emphasize this enough. And as a consultant who works with a lot of organizations and a lot of people who come to me sometimes with egg on their face to say, hey, Bill, what did we do wrong here? How do we fix this? I'm here to tell you that you should not be exporting from lists in the web view, not because it's not a good feature, but because it wasn't built to export. In fact, Blackbaud only added an export button at client demand relatively recently. Blackbaud's original intent was not to even have an export button because it wasn't built to be an export tool. We don't have time. Again, I told you at the beginning we wouldn't have time to cover everything, to make all the points about why lists don't do a good job exporting. But I do want to emphasize this so that as our direct marketers are building their lists, what they need to keep in mind is this is the basic audience that I would like the mailing to go to or the email to go to, and then move over to database view tools, saving the list as a static query into the database view, and then using database view tools to successfully do the mailing. As a quick example, if you look at the quick letters function from Mail in the database view, you can see there are 8 tabs of questions. There's just not that level of sophistication yet built into the web view. And so it's very important for our direct marketers that we use the 2 views together for the most successful experience. Moving on from that point, there are reports in the web view that I think have tremendous value for our direct marketers. The first of them would be appeals reporting. Now, I realize this is not the cat's meow. The appeals dashboard is not going to answer every little last metric that a direct marketer is going to want to know about the performance of their appeal. But on a day-to-day basis, when they're just tracking the last 3 or 4 or 10 appeals that they've sent, and they want to see how they're performing towards goal, it's a quick and easy way to be able to just check in with the software based on current gift entry and see how each appeal is performing. I'd also remind you all that if you click on the name of the appeal on the dashboard, that the appeal will fly out on the right side of the screen, and you'll be able to see even more metrics and more reporting and more graphs and charts about the performance of the appeal. So while we might think of the web view as more of a major gift officer type tool, there are absolutely reports within the web view that our direct marketing colleagues can benefit from. Let me show you 3 more. When I first started with the web view, and for years, and I would learn reporting and then began training reporting, I thought the retention, recapture, and acquisition dashboards were okay. I mean, that's kind of the fad right now in fundraising, is we have to do less to churn our donors, and we need to do more to keep the donors we have. And so I initially looked at this as just kind of feeding into that fad. But what I've had the opportunity to do over the past 6 months with a few clients is to really explore these dashboards, and I really like them. I like them for the whole organization, because one thing that I didn't realize until recently is that if you add up the retained, the recaptured, and the acquired donors and dollars, that is a complete representation of your current donor pool. And it is important, it's not just a fad, it is important that we do more as fundraisers to keep the donors we have and not just keep churning donors. And so this gives us the ability to do 2 things. It gives us the ability to track our performance this fiscal year to see how well we're doing on these metrics. Plus, it gives us the opportunity to improve them. And it's not till I really spent some time with these dashboards that I began to appreciate them. Let me show you what I mean. So here's a zoom into the retention dashboard. On the left side of the screen, we have those year-to-date performance metrics. So how many donors we've kept, what percent that is, how much money that is, etc. So this resets on July 1 of every year, or well, July 1 if your fiscal year is July 1 to June 30. But on the first day of your fiscal year, all of these numbers and percentages on the left reset to 0. And then they work their way up as the year progresses. I have understood that some people have misunderstood how these metrics are measured. And I would encourage you to download the slide deck and to look at the previous slide and understand this more so that you can benefit from these metrics. But on the right side of the screen, there's also the opportunity to improve these metrics. You don't have to go into the database view and run a live bunt report. There you go. And as anyone who used the web view should know, you simply click on those blue numbers and it will show you all of those constituents so that you can then establish a fundraising strategy for them. That's the retention dashboard. Here's the recapture dashboard. A different group of donors, but the same concept. So wrapping up the direct marketer focus, there are 3 tools in the web view that I think are very useful for our direct marketers. I focused on lists and some of the reporting. And so I would encourage you to encourage your direct marketers to use the web view, but again, to keep in mind, sorry for the redundancy here, but it's very important that you should not be exporting from lists. You should still continue to export from the database view. So let's wrap up with one final point on this idea of modern fundraising and how we as fundraisers using the web view should be using the experience most successfully. One thing that drives me crazy is offices that want the gift processor to run a report at the end of the day of all the gifts they've entered and then email it to the team. And some people are even going and power automating this so that the system automatically emails this. I would recommend against that. I'm not against Power Automate. If you want to use Power Automate, it has a lot of terrific applications, and I'd encourage you to learn it and use it, but not for this purpose. We want fundraisers in the software. We want fundraisers with the ability to click on a gift amount and see more information about the gift. We want them to be able to click on the donor's name and develop a strategy about how they're going to respond. So in lists, not in the work center, but in lists in the web view, any user at any time of day or night, any day of the week, can see a list of all the gifts that have been recently given. There is one final slide here. If you download the slide deck, that will quickly show you how to set that up. I'm not going to talk through it now. You can download the slide deck. Okay, so with that, I've hopefully given you some tools that will help you all do your fundraising better in Raiser's Edge. I'm not sure I would say that if you just do these things, you've mastered fundraising in the web view, but hopefully these are tools that will help you as you move towards mastery of fundraising using this terrific software that we have. Okay, all right, well, thank you again for coming to the session today. Have a terrific conference and all the best with your fundraising. Thanks again for the work you're doing. Take care.